talking about outfield, a guy that's been brought up quite a bit is Jurickson Profar to potentially bring him back. So I want to ask you guys, one, do you think it makes a lot of sense for the Padres to bring him back? And two, do you think that's something that's actually like, in the car, something that could happen? Because there's been like no news at all on Jurickson Profar, which I find a little odd, like not from like anyone. I haven't heard anyone linked to Jurickson Profar, anything like that. It seemed like he was going to get, $15 million a year, $14 million a year. I don't know if that's still what he's going to end up getting, but all of a sudden, Padres don't really add anyone. And he's a guy that could potentially come back. He was really good last year. We were not very high on him. I personally was not very high on him coming into the year. We thought that left field was maybe the Padres' weakest spot, and a lot of that was because Profar was atrocious defensively the year before in the outfield, and he was kind of bouncing around like Fernando did as well, where he wasn't really a full-time outfielder. He was playing a lot of infield, a lot of utility, really struggled in the outfield. Last year, he was really good for the most part. And he was especially good from left field because he was throwing so many guys out and he had a bunch of outfield assists. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think Jurickson Profar is a guy that the Padres should bring back as kind of like the final piece of the puzzle offensively?
I would love to have Jurickson Profar back. I can't really see him getting much more, if not. No, yeah, I don't really see him getting much more than Brandon Drury. He got 8.5 AAV. I think it was 2 years for 17 or something like that. With the Angels, I think Jurickson will probably get like 10 to 12. He did have a pretty good season. Yeah, his OPS was only like a seven. What was it, like around a 740 or something like that? But he did have really solid defense out there. He was a backbone for the Padres team. He was honestly really good most of the time in the leadoff spot, and he, other than really one or maybe two slumps, he was pretty consistent throughout the season. So I really enjoyed having Profar there. He's a great clubhouse presence. Everybody likes him. Um, it seems like he's one of everybody's best friends on the team. So I really want him back. And if you look at positional versatility, he can play left field. Doesn't really play center field very well, but he can play center field. He's played first base before. He's played second. So he does provide quite a bit of positional versatility. I want him back. I don't know how much sense it makes, considering you still need another pitcher, whether it's pitching depth or a fourth starter. I think they're in on Johnny Cueto. Um, but as long as we have money to sign Profar and another pitcher, I'd be happy. I definitely think the Padres are in the trade market for another pitcher, whether it be a number two, number three, number four, whatever it is. They're trying to get somebody to put in the pitching rotation. But as far as free agent bats go, I think Jurickson Profar makes the most sense because of he's been here already. He's been with this lineup. He's been around this group of people. He loves San Diego. I mean, he's really enjoyed his time here, and I've enjoyed seeing him kind of not have a career resurrection. You can even say kind of a career resurrection here. I've enjoyed it for sure.
I think if like you want another legitimate starter, I don't think that's the way to go. Just because he's going to be making $15 million, you're going to have to pay another pitcher more than likely. So if you wanted to go a cheaper route, you have a couple other options just so you can get another pitcher because pitching depth is kind of what has hurt us in the postseason the past few times we've been there. I mean, we looked at 2020, we legit didn't have any starters. Last year, Mike and Clev burned us really badly. Like, if we just had one more legitimate starter, we probably beat the Phillies, but we didn't. I like Profar. I think he's a great clubhouse presence. He's always there. He's always smiling. All the guys seem to like him. Though his slumping can be a little bit problematic sometimes. He did play great defense last year. I think he led the league in outfield assists, like Isaac was saying. He played great defense. He can play a little bit of center field if you need him to, and he can play almost basically any infield position. The other guy that I was thinking about, which I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's Josh Harrison. He's currently a free agent. He is much older than Profar, so that's the only downside is he had a really good year last year. Does he continue it at age 35? He'll be a little cheaper. It'll allow you to maybe go out and get another pitcher. But, hey, I'm good with either options. I think Profar is still really solid. I just don't know if $15 million a year is worth it for Profar.
And I think that's what we're going to kind of find out with Profar, because it's not super clear on, you know, how much he's going to make, because that's what we're thinking heading into the year. But all of a sudden we see a lot of these teams have paid, you know, a ton of money, and the contracts, I mean, typically they don't really go down, but when we kind of look back on like, oh, guys that have signed later, like when Machado and Harper signed super late in free agency, those are superstars in their prime that are signing, you know, $300+ million deals. So that's a little bit different, I feel like, where Profer is kind of like one of these mid-level guys that just had a career year. Some of the teams probably aren't going to buy into that. Others are going to buy into that. That already reduces kind of the market. And then it's this late in free agency. So it could be one of those things where it's like, yeah, you could be bidding against like one team or no one or two teams. You know what I mean? Like it could be a small market where you're like, hey, Jurickson, this is our offer to you. You know, it's 10 million or 8 million for 2 years, or, you know, whatever it is, like a 2-year, $20 million deal with like incentives or something like that. Right. And they're just like, you can take it if you want, or you can just wait out. Like you can wait until this day and then we'll pull the offer. And they're just kind of waiting to see, okay, is this, you know, a good enough deal? Is this your best deal that you have? Or does someone offer you 2 for 24, or, you know, something a little bit more, but it's like, I don't know. I don't really know that that's the case. So I hope that the Padres have done something like that. I hope that they've sent him an offer, or at least kind of let him know, like, hey, this is what will you be willing to work a deal out with you? And the Padres are kind of waiting, because I do think that you probably need one more outfielder. Maybe not, but I think having the depth, I don't know if you need a full-time starter, though. That's the thing. Because if you get a full-time starter in Profar, well, then when Fernando comes back, are you just planning to like play him sometimes in the outfield, sometimes at short, and DH him? That's kind of a handful for him to come back with, and to like have this utility role where he's doing a bunch of different things. I don't know if that's what you want to do with Fernando. So a guy like Josh Harrison Chase, I think that's super interesting, because, you know, he's going to be pretty cheap. I want to see his numbers lately, but I mean, you look at Profar's numbers last year. This was one of the best seasons. He had over 3 WAR, and that's Baseball Reference WAR. But he had a 111 OPS plus. You know, put up good numbers, was good defensively. I thought he was solid. So yeah, I mean, Harrison had a pretty solid year. Harrison's been pretty consistent, though. It's just kind of an older, cheaper option where you would be able to bring back a guy that everyone really likes. Because that's the other thing. Everyone really likes Profar in terms of the locker room, too, which I think is something that you have to give him credit for. Anyone else? Because I do want to talk about Brian Reynolds here in a second, but is there anyone else, or kind of like what you're thinking about for that final outfield spot? Like, is this something like someone that you think is maybe the best option? Are there any guys outside of Josh Harrison that you guys are really intrigued by? Excluding Brian Reynolds, though, of course.
No, not really. I mean, if we're going with the bat, it depends on how much he's making, of course. I would rather just get Jurickson Profar back. But as far as outfielders or really anything in general, I'm not exactly sure. I think maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say first baseman because Cronenworth's going to be playing first base. But at the same time, there's still a trade or two to be made, whether that be Ha-seong Kim, Trent Grisham, or shoot, maybe Jay Cronenworth. I'm not sure. I doubt it's Jay Cronenworth. I will say I highly doubt it's Jay Cronenworth. Dennis Lin recently put out an article that said he's one of the leaders in the clubhouse. He's a captain. Ownership loves him. AJ loves him. All that. He's not going nowhere. So that comes down to Ha-seong Kim, Trent Grisham. Everyone's been arguing who makes more sense to deal, and that's up for you guys to debate. But I do think in order to acquire a pitcher, one of them or Jackson Merrill will have to go. But no outfielders, no one that I can really think of that's still on the market that I would really say let's go out of our way and sign him over, potentially Johnny Cueto or another pitcher that the Padres could use.
The only one I can think of, and it's depending on how much money he'd make, is Adam Duvall. He's an option that intrigues me just because he would provide some power. He can play. I think he played first for a little bit. He's played left field. And he'd be another power bat that the Padres could use as a DH and outfielder just to get, Soto or Tatis some day off. anyone who's playing the corner outfield. Hell, if Cronenworth, it's a bad matchup from Cronenworth, you can throw Duvall at first. I think Duvall might be an option to look at, but it depends on how many years he wants and sort of the market around him, because I don't know how many teams are in on him. I don't know what his market value is right now, but it could be a risky option, but it also could be something that's very rewarding because, it worked out for the Braves. He had a 3.6 WAR last year, so he's not a bad option. It's just how much money is he going to make? Is he the biggest need right now? Should we go after another pitcher? Like as I said, I think we need another pitcher. I remember seeing a tweet. I don't remember who tweeted it, but they said you don't need Cueto in the playoffs, but you definitely need Cueto to get to the playoffs. And that couldn't be more true.